Hi everyone, you should have been admitted from the lobby now. Hope everyone's okay. We'll start in a couple of minutes. If you want to drop a hello in the chat, just so we know you can hear us okay, bit of a sound check. And let us know where you've come from as well, whereabouts you are in the country. Hi Nick from Dorset. Hi Sarah from Newcastle. Not far from us. Hi Sinead from Fleet.
Hopefully the sun's shining where you all are as well.
Very warm where I am, since from Sinead. Yeah, it's red hot here.
Yeah, here too as well. So, Beth, I'm going to make a start.
Yeah, it's past.
Okay. Right, hello everyone. I hope you're all well today. So welcome to this session for the Interactive Media V-Cert. So just before we start, a bit of housekeeping. So you are in control of your camera and microphone. And if you're not speaking, if you can put yourselves onto mute just to minimize any background noise. Although we would like everyone to engage and interact, so there will be that opportunity. And I think, Beth, are you setting those now where they can have access to their mic and camera?
Yeah.
However, any questions you have as well, you can use the chat and just feel free to ask any questions throughout the session. Also, please use reactions, pop your hand up if you have a query. The session will be being recorded and will be available in the chat at the end of the session. Certificates are not available via the Teams platform, but if you would like to have one to say you've attended, then we can send those out as well. We'll be using a Jamboard today, so be ready to add any sticky notes or text boxes to complete the activities. There's also an interactive word book in an editable format, and that was sent out yesterday. You should have that in an email.
If there's anyone who hasn't received the workbook, if you just post your email in the chat, I can send that out to you now.
And we've also, say the Jamboard link, we'll need to, is that now in the chat?
I've posted that in the chat as well, so it's just making sure everyone's got the workbook.
That's great. Unless you've registered for this event, though, you won't receive any follow-up emails. So if someone else has registered for you and you're attending in their place, make sure you drop us your email so you get the information. So Beth, are you ready to press record?
Yeah, the recording started.
Right. So welcome to this virtual session for the V-Cert Prepare to Teach for Year 1, specifically for interactive media. And before we dive in, we'll just start with a couple of introductions. So I'm Patricia Devlin. I'm a Provider Development Officer who supports providers, particularly in schools across the country, with ongoing V-Certs, onboarding, training and CPD. I'm joined today by Beth Hudspeth, who also works in the Provider Development team, and I'll let Beth introduce herself.
Thanks, Patricia. Hi, yeah, I'm Beth, and I work on the Provider Development team as well. My background is art and design. We are also joined in the background by Sarah Fernley for SME support and subject knowledge of interactive media. Sarah will be in the chat and on the Jamboard supporting us on this webinar. And for those of you who may not have heard of NCFE before, we are an educational charity and an awarding organisation that specialises in vocational education. At post-16, this includes our study programmes, T-levels, and our 14 to 16, this is our VCERT Technical Awards. And it's a pleasure to have you all here today.
Thank you, Beth. So this webinar will provide a brief overview of the VCERT Technical Award in Interactive Media, covering the qualification structure and assessment. We will explore the curriculum planning, formative assessment, where you'll have the opportunity to look at your pupils' knowledge journey and create a roadmap to help you with better understand and how when to teach the indicative content, as well as develop some formative assessment activities. We'll also share a summary of all the resources and support that will be available from NCFE to support you and your pupils before giving you the opportunity to create some teaching and learning activities of your own that can help you deliver the content in an interactive and engaging way. As a group, we'll also learn from one another as well and share best practice on what we currently do within the classroom. And lastly, there'll be an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have about the qualification. We're also aware that our quality assurance team have recently postponed sessions which cover the Model 5 VCERT. How the Model 5 VCERT, sorry, I do apologise. Postponed sessions which cover how the Model 5 VCERT are assessed. The rearranged dates for these have not been shared with us yet, so please be aware that that's not part of this training, so we are unable to answer any specific questions about the assessment regulations. The rearranged dates will be before the end of this academic year, well before you need the information about the assessments in year 2.
So before we begin, we're going to start with a starter activity. Or have I jumped ahead, Patricia?
And we're looking at the poll. I'm just about to...
That's it, the screen. Thank you, Patricia. So we're going to start with the starter activity. So we're going to do a quick poll on how confident you're currently feeling with the delivery, assessment and quality assurance of the VCERT qualification. It may be that you're brand new, so you're 1, being no to little confidence, and 10, you may have already been delivering for a year and feel very confident.
Right,
so we're going to launch the poll.
Yeah. They are anonymous.
And these are within the chat.
So it's looking like at the moment, everyone's around about the 5 and 6. Yeah, that's 100% at 5 to 6.
Great. So hopefully by the end of the session, we might get you up to the 7 to 8s or even the 9 to 10s. So the first activity that we're going to do is the KWL activity, and this is within your workbook. So in this page, you're going to write what you already know about the VCERTs and what you would like to learn. And then after the session, you complete the workbook of what you did learn. So if you use your participant handbook and fill in the what you already know and what you want to learn. So we'll give you a few minutes. And then what we'd like you to do is in the chat function, share with each other what you want to know and what you'd like to learn. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to write it in your workbook. And then if you could pop it in the chat. So what do you already know about the VCERTs in interactive media? And what is that you'd like to learn? So we've got Nick, he's already taught the old version for the last 4 years. So Nick, you should have some great practice to share with people who are new to the qualification if you've been teaching for 4 years. And Nick, you said you'd like to learn how the NEA is assessed and works. So as we said, that won't be covered in this session because this is a prep to teach year 1. That will be covered in the prep to teach year 2 and the assessment. Sinead said, "You've taught the old level 2 coursework. From looking at the new course, it seems that the NEA is what the exam was historically and have taught the course for 3 years." Yeah, so we'll cover the NEA, what it looks like, but we can't answer any questions about how it's assessed.
I'm just going to move to the next slide, Beth.
Yep.
So I'd like to start with a brief overview of the structure of the interactive media technical qualification. So if you've taught the interactive media visa before this, it will be familiar to you, but you'll notice it's been refreshed. So the guided learning hours are 139, and this includes 120 for delivery and 17 for the NEA, and 1 hour 30 minutes for the exam assessment. So the total qualification time is 153 hours. This includes any homework you might set and independent learning. The NEA has a 60% weighting and the exam itself has 40% weighting. The content assessed in the EA and the NEA will be sampled from across the full breadth of the qualification. And the overall qualification grades are a level 1 pass up to a distinction, and for a level 2, a pass up to a distinction star.
Sorry, I was just answering some questions in the chat. So next we're going to look at curriculum planning in a bit more detail and what your learner journey is going to look like. So when considering curriculum planning, this quote really resonates with me, and I often refer to it when considering curriculum design and teaching and learning sequencing. The delivery of what you need to teach from the qual spec does not need to be, nor was it intended to be, delivered linear. Spaced practice or distributed practice, which Dylan refers to, means space and retrieval and recall of knowledge over a period of time, rather than cram practice regularly revisiting prior learned materials. So it's an important part of effective planned curriculum, providing an opportunity for pupils to forget and relearn supports the transfer of knowledge to the long-term memory. So considering the content areas, let's explore for a moment a blocked approach versus interleaving and how spaced learning retrieval can support delivery of the new model vCert. Block study, which involves studying a topic before moving on to another, may have suited the previous vCert model, and I know quite a few of you in the chat have said that you've delivered the old model. But this featured an end of unit assessment. However, the information isn't being transferred to the long-term memory, which needs to be the primary focus. So with the new model of the vCert, such that the students no longer do that end of unit assessment, the ability to retain and recall large pieces of information has become even more important, and the science of learning evidence for the interleaving is most effective strategy. So the example on the screen explores how content can be mapped using the blocked approach compared to the interleaved approach. So in the chat, can you let us know which approach you were planning? Were you planning to teach content area one by one, or have you explored the content and made the natural links across the content areas and were thinking about interleaving? If you let us know in the chat, were you thinking of doing the blocked approach, as you may have done in the old spec, in the old qual, or are you thinking about doing interleaving? I'm just watching the chat stuff coming through. So we've got Sinead have done practice projects in between each content area. Nick's done interleaving content with practical skills too. At the moment, one by one, as the resources have been released. So obviously this year you were doing them one by one as the resources were released. So now thinking for September, the resources are all released. Will you look at doing the interleaving approach? Got not done much theory content so far, concentrated on practical skills, currently using sample NEA as a practice ready for September. I'll just wait for the chat to come through. There's also in the comment wondering about subject-specific CPD. That's something we could do in the future with Sarah and use her knowledge. Could do content 3 and link 1 and 2 nicely. Yeah, so we're going to go on to that in our next, first activity. Sarah said yes, definitely. We'll do some CPD in the next year. And Nick's will rewrite year 10 scheme for next year as the remainder of unit workbooks are released. Yeah, brilliant. That's that thing, isn't it, when it's a new qualification and the resources have come out, but in September you should have them all. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. So the interleaving refers to mixing up subject topics, or in the case of research, the content areas, instead of blocking them together. This helps the students to make the connection and leads to the benefits of transferring of learned skills. So in the context of your curriculum plan and design, mapping the core content knowledge and understanding effectively allows that overlap of naturally holistic links alongside carefully considered space practice, as well as designed retrieval tasks and testing, and is an excellent formative assessment opportunity for you as a practitioner, whilst helping you prepare your students for the summative assessment of the core exam papers. And we'll come back to formative assessment methods to support your practice testing and retrieval later in this session. But now we're going to have a look at the learner journey and how it's woven into curriculum planning. So on the screen here, we've got the learner journey. So you will be aware of the qualification content, which is your curriculum, and you'll be planning the order of delivery. But it's also important to remember the whole learner journey, so include knowledge, skills and behaviours, and that learners need to be successful in their chosen industry area. And we've added some of the areas which you might be important to include here too, but this list is not exhaustive and you would need to be individualised for each learner. So we've got subject specific, English and maths, digital skills, work industry skills, communication skills, analytical and evaluation skills, and other things, problem solving, adaptability, proactivity, objectively, professionalism, and so on. So it's very much about your whole learner journey.
Thank you, Beth. So there is one unit that contains the 7 content areas for the interactive media. The specification includes the indicative content and the teaching guidance. And I think Beth's just popped that into the
I've
chat
posted
there
that
now.
in.
That's great, thank you. So here is a visual of the structure of the new vSerts that was covered in more depth in part 1 of the Prep to Teach. But this, you can see that what you have here is you have the year 1 which is all the content delivery. The NEA brief released at the start of September. Then obviously it's up to you when you decide to do that NEA delivery. Personally, I would probably be doing it around about here. And I think, Nick, you mentioned that you're going to do a practice one. I would definitely be doing a practice one here to get them used to what that looks like, what the expectations are. And then you've got the examined assessment in the normal exam period, May and June, with the certification coming out in the August. So interleaving the content areas is based on the idea of a learning journey that embeds the knowledge and skills through a sequencing of the curriculum. So pupils are required to combine elements of their learning and show accumulated knowledge and understanding across the qualification content. Synoptic assessment enables pupils to evidence their capability to integrate and apply knowledge and understanding and skills gained with the breadth and depth in context. Therefore, it is essential when planning for teaching throughout delivery that the interdependencies and links should build across the content of the qualification and then highlighted and reinforced. As we mentioned before, the content doesn't have to be delivered in a linear way. Content areas are interdependent in knowledge, skills, and concepts. And teachers can take that synoptic approach across the qualification. And this will enable pupils to apply theories and concepts from across the qualification specification in context to the skill-based situations. So through combining the content and developing holistic connections, pupils will be able to demonstrate and evidence their full knowledge and understanding of the subject area of interactive media and the sector. So this slide shows a summary of the NEA tasks for interactive media, including the marks to be awarded for each section. A key point to note here is that when you are considering the learner journey and sequencing the curriculum, the content areas need to be continually linked to the NEA and tasks. It's also worth considering how your learner journey also linked to the external assessments as well.
So let's get our thinking hats on. So for this activity, I'd like you to think about how you would sequence the content and why, and we've covered it a bit already in the chat. So considering if you need to teach a content area in its entirety before moving on. So we're going to use the Jamboard. I'll repost the link as well because it's probably been bumped up the chat. So which areas of the indicative content link? Are there any common themes? Can you link forward and link back? How can you embed the knowledge? How can you embed the skills? So start to create your learner journey knowledge roadmap or review what you may have already done, produced thinking about your curriculum. And we're going to share on the Jamboard. So I'll just repost the Jamboard link. So if we could all move over to the Jamboard page.
I'm just going to move that onto the screen so you should be able to see that.
So it's on page 2. And then for those of you who haven't used Jamboard before, you have the panel down the side, and then there's a little square box that says sticky notes. And then you add a note there. So which content areas would you plan to deliver together? How would you see your curriculum plan, your roadmap working? So we'll have a few minutes going over.
So you can either use the sticky note or you can do a text box and type in the text box.
And while we're doing this, I want to just answer some of the questions we have in the chat. And there was a question in the chat about the resources, and I've posted the link to the document that has the dates of the release of the resources. So we've got could refer to content area 3, hardware and software, when talking about media assessments and content area 1. Content area 5 could be done with when doing the NEA. When you say content area 5 could be done when doing the NEA, do you mean a practice and a mock NEA or the real NEA? If you mean the real NEA, the guidance will need on how the NEA is delivered. It may be that you are unable to run content areas alongside, but we're still waiting for the detailed information. Unit 4 proposals in prep for the NEA. Someone else is saying I'd sort out the theory elements, not relating to the practical NEA, and mostly leave those until after the NEA. And we've got Unit 1 first, and the others can be interleaved with practical skills. Proposals and presentation promoting could work hand in hand along of design, would have to present their proposal before making a product. Got constant reviewing of work throughout the course. Great, thanks everyone. So as we go through this webinar, this Jamboard is for you as a group to use. This stays live. This is for you to refer back to. We've got another one, need regular retrieval practice of practical skills, as well as theory of content. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be key, isn't it? With the keep.
So we're going to just pause now and refer back to your workbook and take a look at the plan, do, review template. So looking at what we've just spoken, what we've just posted on the Jamboard, take a few moments to consider what you've already done and what you plan to do by the end of today, like what you take away from this, and then what you plan to do by September. We'll just have a couple of minutes. So for activity 1, what have you already got in place? Looking at what other people are doing, is that giving you an idea of what you want to, some thoughts to add today? Next week, will you maybe review again, look at interleaving, and then by September, we'll just take a couple of minutes to, and that's in your workbook, page 5. And thank you, Nick, for your feedback in the chat to the resources. I'll feed that back to the resources team. I'll feed that back, Nick, about content area 4. Right, should we move on, Patricia, to the next one?
Yeah. That didn't work. Let's have a look.
So just going off the comment about using Dragon's Den and the Apprentice, that goes quite nice into our next activity. So
Yeah.
Patricia, do you want to go on, share this
Yeah.
activity?
Yeah, so looking at activity 2. So for this activity, I'd like you all to think about the teaching and learning activities or tasks that can enable you to teach the content in an active way to your pupils. So we're going to be using Jamboard page 3. Again, the sticky notes to record your answers in the different content areas. Just put that Jamboard back up. So I think we've got some examples there. I'll let you have a quick look at that before I put the Jamboard up. Learners could work in groups to discuss a practical scenario for a new product based on a specific audiences. Learners could be given the opportunity to experiment with a range of hardware and software packages to gain understanding of those. I'll just put that Jamboard on now. And we are page 3. That's disappeared, hasn't it?
So we use Adobe software for Dreamweaver plus Photoshop and Animate for making assets. So that's a software and hardware. God, I can't speak. Software and hardware options for interactive media products. We've got students to make an interactive media product about file types within media assets and what hardware software is best. So for developing an interactive media product, we've got practical projects using Year 10, developing a product to attract tourists to Dorset, developing a product to tell children about the Bristol Balloon Fiesta. Ooh, I like that. So for interactive media and the audience, I also got the students to make the donut mess with us, product after looking profile and audience. So next one, lots of free software you can download and use if school allows. as opposed to Adobe, which you have to buy a license for and may be expensive for some schools on a tight budget.
I think as well, I remember using Dreamweaver, and I found Dreamweaver quite different, like from a personal point of view, quite difficult to use as well. So you've got that aspect to look at as well.
So for promotion and presentation of interactive media products, they then present Donut Mess with us, which could link to 6. Great. So far, just use some of the ideas from Unit 4 of the old course.
There is some elements as well of crossover from the old course, and some of those older resources might also give you some ideas. I think they're still able to be downloaded as well. If you haven't, you probably already got them, but just to get some sort of additional ideas.
So for product proposals and planning for interactive media products, we've got planning, use mood boards, navigation maps, wireframes, etc. So review of production processes and final product. Provide peer feedback sheet when students present so students get used to reviewing. Brilliant. Got another one, use project diaries to show progress and development as going along. Students given different audience groups to pitch a product for, different age, gender, class. Distinctives could be used here too. Great, thanks everyone. Should we move on to the next activity, Patricia?
I'll just move that back across. So is that the what? Is that the one we've just done? Yeah,
we've just done that one.
Yeah, it's just jumped back a slide. I was just getting myself. Oh, hang on. So has that now gone to activity 3? Yes.
Yeah, we've got activity 3. Thanks, Patricia. So hopefully we found that activity helpful, and you'll be taking some great ideas away from each other to try out in your classroom. So leading on from activity 2, we thought it would be useful to share best practice, such as the resources and or ideas that can enhance effective practice in and out of the classroom for your pupils. So using the Jamboard again on page 4, let us know what resources you currently use that you have within your centre and how do you use them. So this is an opportunity for you to share resources with each other. So a few examples that we've included that to get you started. For example, learners could learn from guest speakers, web developers, game developers, video producers, animators, digital copywriters. Or another example could be sharing useful websites for tutorials on software, website design, and mobile apps. And other examples, learners could be given different companies or products to research in groups or pairs using the most appropriate research method and record their findings. And they could present their findings to the class. So if we go back to the Jamboard to page 4. So we've got guest speakers, no, just not practical in a rural setting. What about a guest speaker on a Teams call? So we've got websites. I absolutely love Canva. It's my favourite. Brush Ninja, free frame by frame animation software. Great. Audio editing, more music, bases editable. Used to audio editing.
I've used Wix in the past before as well.
So our school business department run Dragon's Den and we watch this in the lower year groups. Oh, I like that, like the different areas of the school working together. I've done a school trip to BBC Bristol before too. Great.
It might be worth as well, because I remember when I was teaching media, I ended up working with ITV, but they contacted us initially because they were doing a sort of project. So it might be worth seeing if there's anything going on in the area as well within the TV setting and radio setting, and or well, within any media role, really, if there's anything going on that you can get involved with. And we did something with Sky Sport as well, in links with like the university. So it might be worth checking out if there's any programs that they are running that you can get involved with, so they can see that at a more sort of advanced level.
Is there any more other resources that you have that you'd like to share with each other?
If you think of any, you can keep adding throughout as well.
Yep, should we move? Oh, we've got one.
Yeah.
There is a website called Guest Speakers for Schools, and you can write a rationale to try and get them to present to you in assemblies. Brilliant. I've managed to buy DSLR camera to try with students. Fab. Great. Great. Keep adding to the Jamboard as well during and after the session. Like I said, it's for you.
Right. So that must jump back every time. Right, is that the right?
We need to jump back one.
Yes, there we go.
So again, let's go back to your plan, do review in your workbook and thinking about the activities that we've covered for 2 and 3. Is there anything that you would like to, use within your school? Anything you'd like to have in place by September? What you already have? So we'll just take a couple of minutes to add to your workbook. so that you're thinking about the qualification and what it is you want to get done and get into place. Fab, I'm just looking at the chat that Sinead says she's going to look at Brush Ninja. Brilliant. And that's what's good about these webinars and sharing what resources, because what one school uses another school might not. And then when you share your practice, find out what everyone else is using. So Nick's just said in the chat, he teaches Adobe Animate, but Brush Ninja is easier for weaker students, although more limited in what they can do. Great, so that's one that we're going to add to the plan do review and have a look. Great, thanks everyone. So Patricia, we'll move on to the next slide.
Okay. So there are classroom packs containing ready-to-go teaching and learning materials. And as I say, I think some of you have had access to those. So they are in digital and editable format. You've also got the schemes of work, which outline the entire units of work based on 1 hour lessons. You've also got the PowerPoint presentations covering the teaching content from the specification. And that includes classroom-based activities and the workbook as well for independent study that can be used as homework or flipped learning opportunities. Furthermore, the workbooks will contain roundups, and it has those sort of different types of questions, such as multiple choice question. And the types of questions that will be used, extended response questions that will be used in the assessment. And as I say, with all these resources, it's best to use them and adjust them to suit your pupils' needs. There's no, I mean, personally, I've never picked up a resource and used it as is. I've always linked it with other things to make the most of all the resources that you have. Actual assessment material is also a good way to make revision effective. There's also sample materials that are available for the EA and the NEA for you to access on the NCFE website as well on each of the specific VCERT pages. So this one will be for the interactive media. So we're going to take a closer look at assessment and in particular formative assessment. So let's recap back to the quote we shared previously, but explore practice testing and how this links to formative assessment and preparing your pupils for the EA and NEA. So in the context of your curriculum planning and design, mapping the core content, knowledge and understanding effectively, allowing that overlap and naturally holistic links alongside carefully considered space, practice and well-designed retrieval tasks and testing is an excellent formative assessment opportunity for you as a practitioner, while also helping to prepare your pupils for the summative assessment for the core exam paper. So research suggests that practice testing at regular intervals can help prepare students for exams with reduced anxiety as they are used to retrieving knowledge on a regular basis. So it's important that there are a variety of methods for formative assessment, which is contextualized and takes place on a regular basis. It's also important to have both feedback, focus on past performance, as well as feed forward, so focus on their development for the future. So formative assessment helps the development of wider skills, knowledge, competencies, and confidence, and enhances their employability skills, which links to the learner journey explored earlier, as well as gaining knowledge. Are the students aware of their skills and how to develop them? So to support in your preparation for delivery, we're going to spend the next part of the session looking at formative assessment. So on the screen now, you can see a range of formative assessment methods. So if you have a look at these and just post in the chat, which of these do you already use? Is there any you don't use, any you think you might want to try? Have you got any different ones that I think we've just mentioned some in that Jamboard as well, different ones as well?
I'm just watching the little dots go in the chat. So Sinead uses most of them on the screen. Kids love Blooket too. Has anyone else heard of Blooket? I haven't heard of that one.
No, I haven't heard of that one. That's a new one. I'm going to make a note of it.
So we've got discussion of practical work and peer feedback. So what does Blooket involve? It's like Kahoot, but with games in it. Great. We'll have to.
Yeah, because I've used Kahoot quite a lot. Another good one, which I quite like, is Plickers. If you've used Plickers before, because you can sort of see progress over time. So if you have basically what you do is you have a QR code and you can stick it onto the front of a folder or a book, and then you might ask them a question. They hold up the answer A, B, C, or D, depending on which way around they hold the card, and each of they have their specific card, and that would track their progress. You might do that 1 week. You might do the same task especially for retrieval 3 weeks later to see if they've remembered it, and it will show their progress, as I say, and record it against their name. Yes, so Sinead, you've used Plickers. And that's something like, again, you can use with Ofsted as well, because you can show this physically that progress over time.
Thanks for sharing, everyone. Should we move on the next one, Patricia?
Yeah. So moving on to feedback. So if I said yellow box marking for feedback, is anyone aware of what I mean with yellow box marking? So this is the method that can address the majority of assessment for learning. The 5 key strategies mentioned earlier is live marking. So live marking puts a greater emphasis on verbal dialogue that is scripted and targeted to help pupils improve their work. So the yellow box marking is a more targeted approach to marking that ensures teachers and pupils focus on a specific area of the work rather than the entire piece. So that encourages teachers' feedback to be diagnostic and support improvement. The area of work is clearly marked, focusing on the key marking points. And there was a study done in 2020 that found that pupils valued verbal feedback over written feedback, and it was stated that pupils who received verbal feedback perceived the feedback to be better in terms of quality, use, quantity, and timing and usefulness compared to pupils who received written feedback. So this can come from peer or self-feedback and makes the feedback instant, immediately actionable, and you get formative feedback, as you will see if there are common errors of the content that you need to readdress. So the final idea to consider regarding feedback is the idea of repeating content and the intervals between teaching and the feedback and activities.
So we're now going to move on to activity 4 and put some of that theory into practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to share a number of formative assessment tasks that can be used and adapted across the qualification, which shows your pupils' current level of understanding of the content. So we're going to talk through each more in a little detail over the next few slides, and then what we'll do is we'll go to the activity, which is on the Jamboard, and we'll have a play around with all the different activities.
So this one is Walkabout Bingo, which contains questions from Content Area 3, Software and Hardware Options for Interactive Media Products. So pupils can only ask their peers one question each, and they record their answer and name and then move on. So the first person to have all the answers filled shouts bingo. So this task encourages pupils to talk to one another, going beyond the typical think, pair and share, as they have to engage with different members of the class. It is very simple to create, and it's also adaptable. So they're on Jamboard 5 and 6, so we'll have a look at that when we get to that area. You could also, as well, if you did decide to do this, have an answer sheet for the questions that you have yourself, so once it's finished, you can go over all the answers as well.
So the next activity is expand and elaborate. So teachers provide a statement from any of the content areas to ask your learners to come up with some more statements. And this one is an example from content area 4, product proposals and planning for interactive media products, and content area 6, the promotion and presentation of interactive media products. And having a but because so allows your pupils to develop the statement in more detail, as well as develop the detail and the complexity of it. And this helps as well with those long answered questions that they're breaking it down into the but because so. So in the chat, can you give me a learner example of how they would answer a because for the following statement? A website is better than a mobile app to meet the client's needs. So the one at the top. A website is better than a mobile app to meet clients' needs. So in the chat, if you can give us a learner example, how they could answer. Or if you want to do a but or so, you can. I'm just watching the little dots in the chat. So we have a because it can be viewed on a bigger screen and therefore fit more content in.
And because the navigation will be easier to see.
Great, thank you.
Right, so this one is the thinking and linking grid. So a content area or a section of indicative content is chosen, and all the keywords, terminology associated with it are placed within the spaces in the grid. This is an example of content area 1. So types of interactive media products and their features. So your pupils can then roll a dice, and the number that is rolled identifies the first keyword. They roll the dice the second time, and the number identities the second keyword. Your pupils will then use each of the keywords to think and link together using the links made in the grid. So this can be verbal, or you can do it written, and it can be used at any point in the lesson. You could use it as a starter, a plenary, homework activity. You could do it just to break up from one session to another, or if you feel like they need a bit of a break, a change in activity, then this is a good one to do.
So the last one that we're sharing with you is the misconception retrieval. So for this example, we've added some common misconceptions using content area 3, promotion and presentation of interactive media products, and content area 6, promotion and presentation of interactive media products. Sorry, I've read that wrong. 3 is software and hardware options for interactive media products, and 6 is the promotion and presentation of interactive media products. So your pupils will try and provide a correct or better answer, and through their research will attempt to support their answer with evidence. So again, this will be on the Jamboard page. So also consider having some examples of correct or better answers. So now that we've had a look at all these activities that you can do with your learners, we're going to go over to the Jamboard and just have a bit of a play around with the activities, and we'll do this for about 10 minutes.
Okay, and it starts on Jamboard page 5. If you can't fit them into the boxes, you could just put them on a post-it around the side or into a box.
We've got the walkabout bingo, we've got the expand and elaborate, the thinking and linking grid, the misconception retrieval,
I think the thinking and linking grids, there seems to be.
There's several. There's
two of each, yeah.
Yeah, for different content areas.
Yeah, 3 and 5.
If we have 10 minutes, just so we've got some on the walkabout bingo. We've got some content area 5. Adding to the thinking and linking, we've got the expand and elaborate. So we'll just spend a couple more minutes doing a few more, but again, these Jamboards are for you to use together. So Sinead's asked to explain the thinking and linking grid.
So there's a number of ways I suppose you can do this. You could get them to roll a dice twice, or you could get them to maybe roll 2 dice at once, and then they would maybe say, for example, I'm just going to move images to there. So say your first one, you'd go along the top, so we'd go to 3, and then you also rolled a 2, so you'd go 3, 2, and then they would have to make a link between the two. So that first of all, what are they? And then is there a link? Can they make a link between the two of them?
And this helps them with their annotation of the NEA and helps them with them long answer questions. So making the links. And
equally, you could put questions in there. I've done this before where instead of putting just keywords, I put questions in there, and you would roll the dice and you might get a 5 and a 4, and you'd scroll down and there'd be a question in that box. And then you would say, and you'd have to give the person who you were talking to, you'd have 2 minutes to give them the answer or a definition for that question. So that's another way that you could do it, by putting questions into a box. So that one might be especially a good one for the EA, if you take some of those questions and add them to the different areas.
we've got an example on Jamboard, page 12. We've got the 2 things taken from the 2 words taken from the content area and then the links between the 2.
So yes, you could make it into a more formal where they write it down, or you could make it into a quick starter where they're just getting the retrieval quite quickly.
I think that's our 10 minutes now, Patricia. But again,
Okay.
keep using this Jamboard. You know, it's a way that you can interact with each other after the session.
So in this last part of the session, I'd like to talk you through the support that's available to you in your centres and details for further information and guidance. So our NCFE website, within the VCERT page, you'll find information about why choose VCERT and the 14 to 16 schools brochure that contains key information about Key Stage 4 vocational education and how to learn more about our VCERT qualifications. You'll also find a link to each of the subject-specific pages and contains the information such as the specification, the sample materials, and the teaching materials. We also have the Parents Supporter and Pupil VCERT Information Hub. On both pages, you can also get in touch we've got the get in touch function where you can request more information on subjects you're interested in. And there's also the opportunity to tick the marketing communications to receive updates on our qualifications, events and news relevant to you via email, on the phone or through our social channels. We've also integrated QualHub into the NCFE website. So what you'll notice now, if you've been on recently, is QualHub and the website are combined. So ncfe.org.uk will be where you can also go to search for all the qualifications and access specifications, assessment materials. But always ensure that you're on the correct page by checking the qualification accreditation number or the QAN. Downloadable support materials where you can access the spec and teaching and learning resources, and you can also get other information from there as well. And you can refer to the portal user guide on our website for further support. So you can see there you've got support, assessment, teaching.
So we also have a VCERT playlist on our YouTube channel, and there's various webinars on there, CPD sessions and training events, which you can access on demand. And this playlist, you can also access on demand the Technical Award Introduction webinar. So when you register your pupils and once they are approved to deliver this qualification, you will be contacted by the provider development team. And this is part of your onboarding process. So this service is very much tailored to the individual needs of your centre to ensure your requirements are met. So the provider development team support your staff to ensure you are prepared to teach the qualification and are clear on the requirements for the delivery and assessment of the qualification. And there's regular CPD sessions throughout the year, especially around those key assessment times to make sure you're on track and feeling confident. And you can also see we offer a range of support on this slide. So other support that's available includes our wonderful customer support team, and they can help support with first line inquiries, for example, registration queries, bookings on the portal. But you can also email the VCERT's VCERT's email at vcerts@ncfe.org.uk with any questions that you have related to the VCERT qualification.
So in this last section, there's an opportunity to reflect on what you will take away from today's session, and you can also look at what your next steps and other opportunities, what your next steps are, and have any opportunity to ask any questions that you still may have. So as we're coming to the end of this session, if you would like to reflect and go back to your plan, do and review in your workbooks, and if you could complete the L part, highlight a few of the key points that you have learned during the session, and then we'll go back to the Jamboard to share our key takeaways. So I'll just put the Jamboard back on there.
And it's on the final slide, slide 15.
Disappeared again. So key takeaways, what will you do next? What impact will this have? And how will this benefit or impact your learners?
So we've got some key takeaways booklet, more ideas for short formative assessment, some other ways of delivering and assessing the content, improve retrieval practice, benefit to your learner, fun learning activities for formal assessment. What will you do next? Going to look at interleaving. What we do next, plan theory, content areas ready for September when resources for units 4, 5 and 6 are provided. Start looking at the formative assessment given today and plan them into lessons. Great, more effective delivery of the content areas. That's how it will benefit and impact learners. So we've got not just teacher-centered teaching being used, student own their own, and yeah, self and peer feedback's really good. Great, thanks everyone. Flick the head one, Patricia.
Sorry?
It's the slides, flick to head one.
So can you see the activity 5 reflection?
Yeah, I'll post the link for the feedback form in the chat. And there's a QR code as well. And there's a short evaluation for you to complete. And this will help improve our services and support we provide. So there's been quite a few suggestions, like we asked, there was a request for subject CPD. So if you put it in the feedback form and then it gets followed up. And then also I think there was someone had put better advertising. So again, if it's in the feedback form, we can get that back to the marketing team that better advertising of this event was needed. So I've put the form and the QR code in the chat. Okay, so we've come to the end of our session, and what we'd like to do is go back to the poll and see how confident you're feeling now with the delivery and assessment of the quality assurance of this vCert qualification. So 1 being no to little confidence and 10 being very confident. So in the chat, Patricia's going to launch the poll, and we were all 100% at 5 to 6.
Right, I'm just going to launch that now. So just going to move that. Oh, it's just gone strange. Hang on, poll. I'm not sure if that's not letting me launch that one. Hang on. So is that the one? For some reason, it's launched further down on my page, and I can't actually get to the launch button. Are you able to launch it or not?
Have you tried scrolling down this side? Oh.
I've got the side there, and scroll down the side there, but it's still not letting me. I was going to, on a scale of 1 to. That's saying live view results. Oh, hang on. That's definitely the one from before. No, if people just want to put in to the chat the numbers, either like 9 to 10, 7 to 8. That's great, thank you.
Nick will go up to a 7 to 8. And Sinead 7 to 8, but would like further discussion. And breakdown of the content areas. So I'm just reading Nick's. He's put that was informative and useful. Thank you. Just need another on assessment now. Yeah, that'll come. We're teaching and learning, and the assessment comes from our colleagues, and that will be delivered by the end of this academic year. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording, and if you have any further questions, if you want to stay back now, we've left that last 5 minutes of the session for you to ask any questions. Also, if you have any questions after the session, you'll see the provider development email on the slide. And just to thank everyone for attending, and we hope you found it useful. And on behalf of NCFE, thank you, and I hope we all have a successful year. So I'll stop the recording now. So if there's anyone who wants to unmute their mic or post in the chat and answer any questions. So the recording